Hello and welcome back. This is our fourth released episode of the Mastering Snap podcast with myself, Vin Kelsier, and my co-host, Talkwyn. It is currently August 27th in North America and early on August 28th in Oceania. And yeah, here we are. So we've got one more week coming up, the last week of the current Daredevil season, and then I guess a week from this Monday evening for my time and Tuesday morning your time should be the release of the next season. Theoretically, according to Datamine, maybe it's going to be a Shield focused with Nick Fury as the card for the Battle Pass. He's a 5 mana, 7 power unit. On reveal, add 3 random 6 cost cards to your hand. Just kind of mentioning that so people have an idea of maybe what's coming up. I'm personally not a fan of Nick Fury, but we're not going to spend too much time going into that. What's your opinion on him, Talk?
Yeah, I don't know. He doesn't seem that exciting to me. Nothing too crazy. I know Willow's been talking about him a little, and maybe he'll find a home in like a Hela kind of shell. But outside of that, I don't really know. He's not really like an exciting card that really changes how you play or anything, in my opinion. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I agree. And I could see him in a Hela-style shell, maybe. Just random junk to discard. But I feel like if you pull off the I've got discards and I've got Hela on turn 6, sorry. Playing too many Magic games, you know? You're not really needing that much more fuel to res a little bit more, right? And a 5/7's below rate. Getting random 6 drops, a lot of them are going to be medium for your deck, likely.
Mm-hmm. But I agree. I think there's one thing to consider as well. I think Willow did the math, and it's like 15% chance that you actually get Hela out of Nick Fury as well. So maybe it lets you build your deck a little bit more aggressive. Like you can throw out your discards a bit earlier and not be as worried, potentially, as you have like a Nick Fury backup. Just a thing to consider.
So the math on what Nick Fury does for a Hela deck, I have done now. It's not quite what Willow said to Talkwyn. Gives you about 14% to hit Hela, but that comes at a cost. It actually does give you kind of a little higher chance, but the reality is you can get Agatha as well as Hela. And if you get that, then on turn 6, you're never playing Hela because Agatha will always play Agatha. So you have a 14% of getting Hela and no Agatha, and then you have a 15.8% chance of getting Agatha, be that with Hela as well, or even just Agatha, at which point even if you draw Hela as your turn 6 play, you can't play Hela. So realize you have a higher chance of missing out on Hela due to Agatha than you do of actually getting an extra ability to play Hela. But that is a thing worth considering, I guess. The 15% even isn't that great. And I guess in my mind where I came to this was, what world would I rather not just play Iron Man on 5 and like Chavez on 6? Because, that's what, 18 power, and this guy is 7, so you need to get at least Hulk or better, which most 6 drops are actually less power than Hulk.
Yeah, I think in general, like the 6 costs, a lot of them aren't that great, and the ones that are great are quite deck specific as well.
Exactly.
So like random 6 drops don't really do a lot right now.
And, if you happen to get like a Central Park or a Squirrel Girl you played that the Iron Man's hitting, now you need to have even more power before. I don't know. Anyway, we can move on from there. So let's talk about some units that remove locations. Which, spoiler, that's going to be relevant to what we talk about today. So what are your thoughts on those, Talk?
Yeah, okay, so I think there's 4 cards in the game at the moment that removes locations for now. So we've got Magic, your favorite Scarlet Witch, Storm, and Rhino. I think yeah, I mean, location removal cards are always great, always pretty good in this kind of game, especially because locations can affect your strategy so
Yeah.
much. What do you think? What do you think
So we
about them,
talked about
Vin?
Magic a good amount last week, right? So we're not going to go too
Hmm.
much into that
Yeah.
again. But here we're kind of focusing more on the fact that she can just remove a location, right?
Yes.
When you don't like.
Hmm.
Storm kind of has her own sort of, you want to secure that location while also removing it if it's maybe a bad thing. Whereas Scarlet Witch and Rhino are just removals. Scarlet Witch has some randomness. Rhino has an extra mana cost to it. Um, if you check our Discord, um, you can read an entire too long article that only I actually care about Scarlet Witch and where you can play her and why it's not always a symmetric thing, right? That if I remove a location, yeah, it removes it for both of us, but I get to pick when I do that. I get to decide when it benefits me I don't want that to be there for you. It's Comertage and I run no other on reveals. Yeah, it's probably better for me to not have that there, right? Or same thing with Onslaught Citadel, or getting some value from Sinister London and then saying, "See ya, you're not going to clone an Iron Man this game, my friend." Um, so there's that too. And again,
Hmm.
our main topic today, I guess we will spoil it just for 2 minutes in advance or three, is we're going to talk about locations a lot. And as we go into that, I think it's very much worth considering also kind of, well, which of these can we actually interact with remove, right? Um, so some of them you can do that. Some of them really they just have an instantaneous effect, and you have to deal with that. And maybe you can't remove as well, and that's the thing that's worth considering.
I want to bring up real quick about Scarlet Witch versus Rhino. So obviously, what you would basically always prefer Scarlet Witch over
Yep.
Rhino, correct? Just because of the one extra energy
Yep.
cost. Okay, if Rhino was a 2/3, the same cost as Scarlet Witch, would you ever run Rhino over Scarlet Witch? Because obviously Rhino is the safer option; it just removes the thing. But Scarlet Witch could have a potential upside.
I would run Rhino over Scarlet Witch, I believe,
You would definitely run Rhino. Okay.
but the mana cost is significant. Um, and then we start looking at say decks that have magic, not magic. Sarah, there we go. The other overpowered card.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
Sarah.
Decks have Sarah in it. Going from 2 to 1 mana is 50%, and going from 3 to 2 mana isn't as much. It's like a 33% reduction, right? And so it gets even more powerful after Sarah. You could sit there and say with negative, you lose 1 power potentially, but 1 power is not usually that huge of a deal, I guess. But yeah, if Rhino was just a 2/3, I would be all in on Rhino, and boy, it makes me sad to say that. You gonna make me cry here?
Cool. Sounds good.
So, also on the topic of locations, what's your thoughts on feature locations and our most recent feature location, I guess?
Yeah, okay. I think featured locations are really cool. Are we talking about featured and hot locations as well?
Yeah,
Both of them?
they're the same in my mind. The difference is what? Featured is when it's brand new to the game, and hot is when it's just kind of rotating in, like, we haven't seen this one in a while. Is that right?
Yeah, except the new locations, obviously, they last 2 days, but they're only a 40% rate. And the old locations we already have are 60%, but they're 1 day
Yeah.
only. I actually really like the idea of the featured and hot locations. I like the fact that ideally it completely just changes the meta. You might want to change your deck buildings a little bit to get some extra value out of the locations, and I think that's really cool. It makes some deck building choices, makes the games a little bit different, moves the meta. Unless you're the kind of guy that just likes jamming Scarlet Witch in every game and saying, actually, I don't want to use the featured location, I just want to play my deck as it is. But I think they're really cool, yeah. What's your thoughts on a hot and featured, Vin?
Well, first I'm going to go ahead and maybe not quite accurately quote Jeff Hoogland. Hopefully I said his last name right. He doesn't like them, and I don't really like them either. Like you said, you can build around it, but it starts to just feel tiresome to me. Like, it makes the game
Mm.
feel more samey. Whereas I think locations is like one of the best things about the game. Um, and so I like it that it's different every game, and the difference is in these locations. Um, and with 60% of getting the same one, it becomes less that. You mentioned just jam Scarlet Witch in every deck, and I think that is a very good plan. When I very distinctly recall when Onslaught Citadel was, I guess, hot, not featured. Everyone was all over running their ongoings to try to double them, and I was just like, okay, I'll Scarlet Witch that Onslaught Citadel and play a generically good deck. Um, and so I beat those people, but I also were beating people that were like, I'm gonna just plan on Enchantress. Okay, I'm not running any extra ongoings, and it's like you're beating both halves
Hmm.
in some way. Um, but it comes at the cost of fun. We play the game for fun, and so people having a lot of fun with hot and feature locations, power to that. Like that's awesome, and I don't have any data on that, but I think if you care only about win rate, I think just playing something strong and having Storm or Scarlet Witch or whatever your choice of let's deal with it in the game would be the way to do it.
Yeah, I mean that definitely makes sense. I love leaning into like the crazy side. Like when Carmitage was featured location, I tried building like the biggest Human Torch possible, and I just love leaning into like the crazy side of the locations. But I agree, and like I play this game a lot,
Yeah.
obviously, so it does get quite stale. Seeing like Gamma Lab every game or seeing like something every game. Personally for me, actually, I wish that the locations I know like it's 2 days versus 1 days, but I actually wish the new locations were 60% and the old locations were 40%. Because I'd rather see like a cool and new location that I haven't really seen before and actually get to play around with it. Rather than seeing the same like vault or whatever that I've already seen for like 2 months before, at a high increase rate. But
Yeah,
what do you
I
think
think
about that?
I agree with that. At least, like you're saying, it kind of leans into this is the new thing. Let's enjoy the new thing a bit more. So I think I
Mm.
agree with you there. You mentioned Gamma Lab. It was buggy, right? He
Hmm.
got a buff on it, he kept
Yeah.
it, and like Brood wasn't cloning more Hulks and things. There were a ton of bugs, and that honestly made it a little more interesting than it would have been.
Yeah, it did. It
But on
actually
the other
did.
side, you saw people like, oh yeah, I'm just going to run Shang-Chi. And I distinctly remember multiple games where it's like they play their Shang-Chi on turn 5 or 6 or whatever as a 3 power unit. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm sure you won some games with that, but I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure you know I have about as much hatred for Shang-Chi as you do love for Scarlet Witch. So I hate Shang-Chi to be honest. But I think like there has been a few locations as well, Nidavellir, Monster Island, and now Gamma Lab as well that I can think of. That it seems like a lot of the deck building answers for the feature location is just jam Shang-Chi in there. I guess it kind of makes sense with the nature of how like giving extra power is a cool thing to
Yeah.
do. But a lot of the time it does feel like you just jam Shang-Chi in and that's like the correct deck building decision as well.
Yeah, and that's a bit linear, maybe. I hope that at some point, and they
Hmm.
surely can. I haven't looked at all the unreleased locations to be quite honest. I don't know if you've looked at many of them, but like, Valkyrie was one of the cards you were supposed to get. What if they made, man, what's that place called in Norse mythology?
I have no
Oh,
idea.
I should know this. I don't know. After they die, they go to this eternal battle.
Oh,
There we
Valhalla.
go. If Valkyrie's
Uh-huh.
theoretically tied to Valhalla, and then it just kind of keyed in on Valkyrie's thing that everything that's played here becomes a 3/3. And what if you did something like that and you
Hmm.
had a location that maybe favors Cerebro 3? And I would love to see them going some other route with it. Um,
Hmm.
and like they can even go really far and have the central or one location transform the other two into the same thing. Maybe that would be two build
Hmm.
around toxic. I don't know.
I mean, there's a card coming
Wait,
for
is
that,
there?
right? Yeah, I think Legion. He's a 6 cost, I think, and he turns every location into the same one that you play him on. If
I
you
did
didn't
not
know.
know. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a
I think
possibility.
Oh, but on turn 6, I don't know. We won't get too hard into that. But anyway,
Yeah.
it does bother me a little bit, but that a bunch of the new ones have been, the tech has been add Shang-Chi. It gets a little
Yeah.
old, I guess, but it is what it is. It's all good. Locations, I think, are still good. Um,
Agree.
but yeah, I think actually after you said up the featured and lower the hot, maybe I just like maybe I'm more okay with that, and then I just don't even like hot locations, but feature locations, I think have a little more draw to me for that exact same reason of this is the new thing. Let's do the new thing versus this one's going to be in all the games and you've played with it a million times.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah.
So moving into our actual main topic, which is locations, like we've just been talking about locations, let's talk about much more generalized things. So there's been a lot of discourse around, which locations do you like? Which locations do you not like? And I think for one, or past that, which locations are good? Which locations are bad? Which locations are good for competitive? Which ones are terrible for that? I think some of these questions come down to personal preference, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Like, it's me very much a function of what deck do you play? What sort of decks do you like playing? Um, and like, I've even changed my which locations I like and dislike based on changing my what decks I'm playing these days. Um, but let's start with competitive locations, or the opposite, non-competitive
Yeah.
locations. Theoretically, we all
Okay.
want a competitive mode, right?
Yeah. Oh,
So
100%.
what
Yep.
metrics make something not good and competitive? It's like you just aren't playing the game yourself, right? You've just thrown away your deck build to pure RNG.
Yep.
And pure RNG, like, there's good RNG. I like locations existing because it comes out, the RNG has happened, it's affecting both players, and now you change your play to react to it. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. I
So
agree.
seeing some
Yep.
of these locations that are just both people have to deal with this, the vault or whatever, I think that's fair, fine. There's RNG that your deck might be a little bit worse in that location for someone else, but we can change our deck building to be better versus more or better into more locations. But some of them, which ones come to mind for you that just they ruin your ability to have any control over the game?
Okay. I think obviously, ego is the biggest offender of
Uh
that.
huh.
Absolutely. Um, I like in a competitive game mode. Neither player really has any choice. Ego just plays the cards where he wants, and that's I. It's just hard to make a proper competitive experience out of that location. Obviously, you still have the mechanics of like snapping and bluffing a little bit, so you have a little bit control in that regard. But overall, like the game is pretty out of control with ego. Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact you have the snapping is good, I guess, but
hmm
you don't really play the full game anymore. Yeah. And then you got what? Weird World.
Yeah, Weird World is definitely an interesting one. You obviously lose control of your deck. You still keep your hand, but then you're drawing from your opponent's deck, which is not very helpful a lot of the time. Unless we live in a world where you've got one top meta deck that everyone's bringing, and effectively Weird World doesn't do a lot because you're drawing out of the same
Um,
decks. But otherwise,
I disagree with that. I think actually World War than that is even
hmm
worse because when you have this deck like I don't know, pick a deck, Destroyer, say, or Death Wave.
sure.
I get Death from my deck in my opening hand, and then I draw your death. It very
Yeah,
much warps it to be less playing on your skill and more on what your opening hand was. I think if your decks are the same, like who got
well, that's a good point.
the better things in their opening hand. So I think it actually is worse in that spot. I will say, World World, a small nod to it maybe is you do get to still decide, like based for your snaps and whatnot, what cards do I have in my hand, and you know what your opponent is drawing with, you know, very high confidence. And if you do
Yeah,
have, Destroyer and they're drawing from a Destroyer deck, they can't do anything pretty much, right? Their whole deck's just useless.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I don't know, but yeah, it doesn't feel good. We build the deck, we want to play our deck, and I don't know, does not feel very competitive.
Yeah. Okay, I guess another one then. Speaking of wanting to play our own decks, I love this location actually. I'm sure we can talk about this in a bit. But for competitive play, District X is not
Yeah,
great. You are at the mercy of Ben Brode giving you good cards that you can actually play. They have hopefully have a tiny, tiny bit of
with your opening
synergy.
hand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, with your opening
I
hand.
think it's very much worth focusing on what you said, that you like the location, and that has a lot of value. And again, we play the game for fun, and sometimes you just have really fun things from District X, right? You get to do some really crazy
Mm.
things. It ruins a card, but getting Agatha there and then watching Agatha play, that makes it so much more fun than it would have been otherwise. Because at least it's like you're just all in on District X at that point, right? And so I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And like you get a Galactus or something random that you can't even get normally. Uh, that could be fun, but as we said, for competitiveness, it just kind of makes it not really. We're not playing Snap anymore, right? We're playing District X, and
Mm.
I don't know. But then if we go to randomness, another form of randomness, I guess. Unless you have anything else to add about
Hmm.
District X,
Ah, no, that's it for now. Yeah.
Danger Room. This is terrible
Hmm.
randomness because it's not known ahead of time, right? It's not you're making a decision to play around it. I mean, I guess you kind of are. You can play like a Colossus there, or Professor X there. Um, but man, you just play like two cards in a row and they both die, and your opponent plays four in a row and none die. That feels so much
Yeah.
worse than, oh look, a blank flipped. Blank being whatever location you just really didn't want to see, because you just lost most of your control there, and I'd rather not see that in a competitive environment.
Yeah, I think like by nature, like same with a lot of things, but like the RNG will even out over time. So there's gonna be one game you're gonna play four cards, nothing's gonna blow up, and your opponent will lose everything. So like the RNG kind of evens out, but it just feels so bad when your things blow up. Like it feels astronomically bad. It's like a horrible feeling,
Yeah,
but yeah, I feel like they could change Danger Room a little bit, make it so like I don't know, every third card you play on here blows up or something. So like there's still an element of it blowing up. It's just not as random, I
yeah,
think. Could be good, yeah.
they could do that. Um, you mentioned that there's random, or what was your exact wording? You don't
The
know
randomness
about it or
evens up.
something, but then you got cheater bots and
Okay.
they do know. I don't know.
That's true, that's true. Yeah, Cheetah Bots and Danger Room is something
But they're
else,
not
yeah.
going to be in competitive, right? We hope. We really hope.
But better not.
Yeah. So is it fair to say those are our four worst locations for competitive? Are we missing anything?
Yeah, I think that'd be the worst ones, yeah.
So moving on, we have some that are still maybe a little bit of randomness, but not just all in. Boom! You're not even playing this game, or you're not winning because of your plays anymore. That have some randomness, right? So we have what? Hub and
Hmm.
X Mansion both give a random card. Hub into your
Yep.
hand. X Mansion into the field. Did I get the right order?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
What are your thoughts on those two?
I actually don't think the hub is that bad at all, to be honest. From personal experience, like most majority of the cards I get out of the hub hardly ever get played. So from both me and my opponent. And the times that they do get played, it's like a multiple man on turn two without a move deck, just a deck that they never turn two. So I haven't really seen the hub swing that much. Obviously, there's like the chance to get Agatha, and that's a big swing. That kind of sucks, but for the most part, I haven't actually like noticed the hub too much. I don't think it's actually too bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hub, maybe Hub hasn't been that bad. I've seen some impactful plays for sure. Um,
Hmm.
like more than multiple man on turn two. Wait, doesn't Hub trigger? No, Hub triggers when it flips up. Um,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Yeah, I think you're right on that. That's probably not that bad for competitive, honestly. It does still feel bad though if your opponent gets something really good and you get something that's Agatha.
Yeah, I mean they can get like crazy stuff like a Enchantress that they're not really running when you're playing like an Onslaught deck.
Yeah.
There is some like definitely some feels bad moments, but I think for the most part it's not too awful. Yeah.
Now you only mentioned that, so what about X Mansion?
X Mansion is a bit more crazy. Again, I love X Mansion as a location, but again for competitive play, I think it's a lot more impactful. You can get something like, for example, if you get the hub, you get an Ebony Maw in your hand. You don't have to play it. You can just opt out to leaving it in your hand. But if like an Ebony Maw flips on your side, you're screwed out of that location. But it's a big powered like disparity when they can get like an Infinite on turn 3, and you get like a Wasp or something. That's like a much bigger like power disparity. That's quite clear, I think. Yeah.
I agree, and I agree that I liked it. I liked the location in general for just casual play. I think still some of my most good memories of playing the game come from X Mansion. I have two specific. One, I got a Galactus into it when I had nothing there.
Yeah.
And it was just hilarious. I think I just got handed the game though because they had like a squirrel and some random other bad thing, and then I just ended up playing out the rest of the game with an Iron Man or something. It wasn't fair at all, but it was hilarious. And I also watched my opponent once get an Ultron in the middle in an X Mansion. And, that filled up their other two lanes, and they were just sitting there like, okay, what do I do now?
Yeah.
They weren't playing a Patriot deck, so... But it creates good stories, and that's still good for the game, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then this is one that you brought up, Subterranea.
Yeah, I think Subterranea is definitely one of the biggest feels bad locations. Again, it stops you from playing your deck, and there is still a lot of RNG like revolved around Subterranea. You just draw 4 rocks, and then what do you do?
Yeah. So do you know what the odds are of how many rocks you're expecting to draw from Subterranea?
I have no idea. Did you do any maths?
I should have. But if I had to guess, you're expected to draw like 2 or 3, somewhere in between them, depending if it flips turn, 1 versus 3 and stuff. I don't quote me on that for sure though. But I do think it's worth noting that when we start looking at different decks have different strengths and weaknesses. I kind of touched on, right? And when you have a deck that suddenly has a lot of locations that it's like, yeah, every other deck hates this location, but I don't, it becomes not quite so bad, right? And so, that's a nod to Patriot maybe, that it works well with Subterranea. It's not any deck that runs Bishop. Not that Bishop needed help, but that just adds to kind of power for Bishop, that if Subterranea does flip and you both draw three rocks, they're not equal, right? Mr. Negative, you draw rocks, they're now 0/1s instead of 1/0s. Again, not equal. But if you draw 5 rocks and your opponent gets 1 or 2, yeah, that feels terrible. Feels absolutely terrible. So, it is what it is. But I guess as far as competitive goes, maybe I agree with you. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Is there any other locations you want to talk about then, Vin?
So some of the borderline ones, I know there's one that a lot of people don't like for competitive, which is TVA. And this kind of comes back to when I played in the Wave season. Is that season 1?
Yes.
So in season 1, I loved seeing TVA, but I was playing Ebony Maw. 0 was my first pool 3 card, and I had 0 and Ebony Maw in there. And man, I was favored every time I saw TVA. Now seeing TVA, it's like, oh boy, do I have Scarlet Witch? Or can I cheat something with Mr. Fantastic? But, I'm playing a Sarah deck that runs Magic, and it's a different story, right? And so that's kind of the deck being countered. But again, I'm happy to run Scarlet Witch in that deck for things such as TVA. And these different locations impact different decks very differently. And so I wouldn't hate seeing TVA in a competitive thing. What about you for TVA?
Yeah, I don't really mind TVA as well, especially the fact that it's like one of the rarer locations. At the moment, TVA is still bugged, where the cubes don't double at the end of the game.
Yeah.
So you can just play it out. Even if you're gonna lose anyway, you might as well just play it out and see what you can do. I don't think TVA is like that bad. But it is quite deck dependent.
Yeah.
If you're running like a more like higher end like deck, you're gonna struggle a lot. But yeah, I think it's okay to have locations that do favor decks over other decks as well. I actually think that is okay. And that's just naturally going to happen in the game. So I'm not too worried about TVA.
Yeah,
Either.
that has to happen, right? Because every deck, I say every deck's different, but unless we have a mirror, decks are different, and you know all these things will be different, right? The negative zone that gives -3 to everything. You know, if you're running a deck that tries to swarm with a bunch of 3-power things, literally swarms, boy, that location hurts. But if you're running, things that you can play for, you run a Magneto there and just pull stuff over or whatever, that location's pretty good for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, definitely.
What about World Ship?
World Ship is, I think, again on the same lines of the TVA. It's an ultra rare location, so we're not going to be seeing it very often. But that also does favor like big kind of style of decks as well. If you're running a lot of like Swarm, you're running a lot of low power cards. It's going to be quite hard. But if you're running any deck that has Iron Man in it, I guess you're probably going to be doing okay. Yeah.
I think I see a lot of people play World Ship wrong. They think they still need to curve out when really they need to be thinking, all right, I got 4 slots here. What do I want my 4 slots to be? You know, I want it to be Iron Man. I want it to be my Chavez. You've only got 2 slots left. What's your most power? You know, maybe it's just a 4/4 is better than a 1/3 even or something. Maybe a 5/4 is better than a 1/3 if you don't have Iron Man in hand.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with World Ship, honestly.
Cool. Okay, I got a question for you, Vin. Then, do you think there should be a separate set of locations for competitive play? Like, do you think, and do you think they're going to like ban like ego, for example, in competitive play game mode?
I think there should be a very small number of ban things in competitive play. I think that a very important thing for a lot of games is you want your competitive environment to line up with your normal experience, right? Assuming they want to have it be an event that's casted, that's watched, you want the players watching to kind of see what they see. They don't want to see the same 3 locations every single time. This isn't the same game I'm even playing, right? So I think that's important. But yeah, having ego in there is just not competitive, right?
Yeah.
I think Danger Room should just be changed overall. If we go back to our first kind of 4, ego I think should not be in competitive. Weird World, I'd rather not see, but I'd be okay with it. District X, again, I'd rather not see. But like you said, you like District X, and that has a lot of value. And so if you're just crossing out, like, you know, if Danger Room gets changed, maybe we allow Weird World in there. We cross out Ego and District X. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think that's
that would be pretty good to me. I'm the same. I don't want like any drastic changes. Like a lot of the fun of the game is like the RNG of it, so that's why I think like the hub and probably X Mansion is like fine as well.
Yeah.
Like I think it's actually kind of cool. Like I can imagine maybe not 100% for the player's side, but as a spectator side, like imagine like a championship game, something crazy comes out of X Mansion. Like I think that's still like a good spectator experience, and I don't think it's too crazy. That's going to ruin the game like 100% of the time.
Yeah, I agree. And if you actually go watch, you know, old Magic the Gathering broadcasts, Hearthstone broadcasts, anything.
Yeah, I mean, there's the old like Paveling book and all that, you know, if you know that moment.
Yeah, like you have these huge hype moments when, you know, someone really needs specifically one card off the top of their deck, and you know you can just see the energy in the room when they draw and they flip it up, and that's a good thing in all honesty. And so as long as it's not too defining every single game or too many games, card games are random to begin with, so it's okay. But most people don't play the game to be competitive. I think. What were the numbers? That 5% of players were in Infinite. I want to say.
Yeah, last season.
So what
Yeah.
about fun location? What's your favorite locations, or some of your favorite locations?
Okay, absolutely. And we've talked about this already, but hot take. I actually think District X is one of my favorite locations. I know a lot of people. I've seen like other streamers tier lists. No shade to Dara, but I know he put District X on like the bottom. He hates District X. But I love that kind of location. It's just completely random, and it's just a lot of fun. I think like you can get screwed over by it, but it can create some like fun moments. Like I love when I'm playing a Mr. Negative deck. I just jam Mr. Negative on District X on turn 4, which is optimally not the best decision to do. But you can get some crazy stuff out of it. I don't know. I think it's a lot
I
of
did
fun.
that literally
So
yesterday, and negative on District
yeah,
X. It was painful, man.
yeah. It's not the correct thing to do, but I love to do it every
Okay,
time.
no, wait. I played District X flipped. I played negative. No, I drew one card. You can guess the card in a
Uh-huh.
minute. I played negative because of that card I drew, just hoping a high rolled. And then on turn 5, I played that card.
Was that Iron Man or Mystique?
No, I got it before.
No.
I got it before I played negative. This card I'm referring to.
Okay. Oh, okay. You draw on turn 5, Sarah?
No, I drew it like on turn 2 or 3 or whatever, right? Like when it flipped,
Okay.
and then I played negative on 4,
Uh-huh.
and then I
Uh-huh.
played this card on 5, thinking, "Oh my gosh, I hope I high roll." Come on, you should know this.
I have no idea.
Jane.
Oh, Jane. Oh. Did you high roll?
0 cards.
Unlucky. Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That's the reason I didn't like. I don't know. Yeah, but it made a fun experience, even though I didn't get it. But imagine if I had. Imagine if I just suddenly pulled like an Iron Man and a Zola or something. That would have been
Yeah,
hilarious.
that would have been crazy.
And so, I'm
Yeah.
with you that it can be a very, very fun location for things like that. One thing that I would like to see change for District X, let me know what your thoughts are. What about when it flips? Like, flipping locations have animations, right? What if the
Yeah.
animation was it showed you the number of cards it was putting in your deck face up, it paused for 20 seconds, and then it put them in your deck?
Oh, so it shows you what cards you're getting in your
It
deck.
shows you the rest of your deck, and so you know what you could draw.
Uh-huh.
Would you like that change, or would you dislike it?
Okay, I would probably honestly dislike that change. But I think if they were ever to put District X in like a competitive game format, I think that would actually work in like a competitive format,
But they
maybe.
shouldn't. They shouldn't change.
Because you can at
locations.
least.
They should keep them functioning this.
Hey?
They shouldn't change location for just competitive. They should function.
No, no. But I actually think like the randomness that it is right now is just a lot more fun.
Okay, that's fair.
Just the fact like for me the feeling of wow, I top decked this Iron Man, the exact thing I needed when I didn't even know Iron Man was in the deck. I don't know. I like that feeling a lot.
Okay. Any other locations you like a lot?
Just in general, I'm gonna say it again. X Mansion as well. I really like the locations that have X in them or anything to do with RNG. I think it just creates so many fun moments and so many fun stories, which is like the yeah. So I just love all the random locations, to be honest.
Okay.
What about you, Vin? What kind of locations do you like? And don't say Mindscape.
Mindscape. I wasn't gonna say that, but I had to just in response to you. Um, I don't really know, honestly. I like the variety. Like, I truly like the fact that there's a variety. I like that I get to react every turn. I like that, the TVA exists, that Superflow exists, that Wakanda exists, that Washington, D.C. exists. I don't actually like Washington, D.C., honestly. I don't really play anything that benefits from it. But man, I did when I played, I mentioned Zero and Ebony Maw. Oh boy, that I guess it was 9 power. It would be a 10 power Ebony Maw now. Would that not be awesome?
Yeah, hell yeah.
I think I kind of like Westview, maybe.
Okay.
I think that's one of my favorites right now, just because it's it leaves uncertainty there a bit longer, which I think I like.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I like the whole variety. I honestly do. Monster
Hmm.
Metropolis makes me play a different way with the highest power card gets +3 power, or the ones that tied or whatever. Weir Island makes me play a different way too. I think Weir Island is really interesting because it changes like Angela playlines even of, do you want to Nightcrawler 1, Angela 2, or do you want to Angela 2, Nightcrawler 3? And it turns out that I think Nightcrawler 1's the better play. And it takes a little bit of thought process, not a lot, to come to that conclusion maybe. Um, but again, it's just the fact that it changes what I'm doing, and I think that's awesome. And so
Hmm.
I honestly don't think I really have a specific favorite. Um, Maybe
Hmm.
my favorite's actually when my opponent likes it more, and then I get to Scarlet Witch it.
Hmm.
Oh wait. Okay. I changed my mind. You're gonna hate me. You're
Okay.
gonna hate me. Bar
Uh-oh.
with no name.
What? Oh, okay. No, I actually like Bar with No Name. I think Bar with No Name again. Okay, so I think that the root of the what we're trying to say is the fact that locations that make you play differently from the way you normally would play are fun. It changes your whole game experience. I think Bar with No Name is like the biggest thing that changes how you play.
Yeah.
So I think Bar with No Name is cool. Yeah.
Man, I just love Scarlet Witching on the last turn. You know?
I have lost many a cubes to Scarlet Witch or Storm on turn 6.
Yep. So yeah. I'll go with Bar with no names. I think my favorite location.
Hmm.
But
Okay. I actually remember as well. I actually like the energy cheat locations like Superflow and Elysium. I think that can set up for some crazy combos. And then I also want to mention as well Sinister London. I always love getting Sinister London in my games because things can go super crazy.
so for both of those, okay, I love the energy ones, but I love the math
Hmm.
behind the energy ones. That I try to get some advantage from it and then destroy it. That's my play for it, right?
Uh-huh.
That I want to get a 4 mana advantage, and my opponent's maybe gotten a 1 mana advantage or something, and then I'm like, my fourth mana was playing Scarlet Witch for one. Yeah, seems pretty good to me. But again, that's a
Yeah.
play line that gets created by having my favorite card maybe in my deck, and locations are just awesome. Like most of them are just awesome, and I love the variety more than anything
Hmm.
else. That when I go into a game, I sit there and I see the first location flip, I see the second flip, and I start thinking like, what's my game plan for this game right here, right? Look at my hand, look at the
Hmm.
locations, and I start trying to make a plan. And I think that's my favorite part of the game, honestly, is seeing those locations flip and then planning out where am I going to put what am I going to do if I have Scarlet Witch in my hand, what do I want to destroy to get the most benefit from versus my opponent there. Um, and so yeah, same thing with Sinister London. It's terrifying though when you get Sinister London versus like Deathpool deck because they just go.
Hmm.
No, I guess Cloning Vats is better for them, huh? But either of them, right? They just start getting these insane things when they get to keep their on reveals from Sinister London and then transferred over to their second copy.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But but yeah, do you have anything more generic that you just like in locations, kind of like what I'm saying? Do you agree with me on you like seeing this wide variety of locations?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I actually like I've heard people say before like they wish that like competitive play, for example, or there's like a separate game mode where every location is just the ruins, which is do nothing. And I can tell you for a fact I would never touch that game mode. If I had to play like Marvel Snap for like even like 1 hour, 2 hours when all the locations are the same, man, that would be a boring game. That game would not get anywhere. I can assure you. I think like one of the main reasons as well is the fact that decks are quite consistent in this game compared to a lot of card games. You draw 75% of your deck, which allows you to get your combos off quite easily. So if every location was like neutral, did nothing, the games would be very very samey and it would be quite boring, I think. So the fact that there's a lot of variety in locations really makes the game a lot more fun and
Yeah,
replayable.
yeah, I agree. Though some decks are looking to draw more than 75% with their magic plays or who knows what
Yes.
Jubilee, I guess. Um, but I do want to say that you say that no one would play the game. I think a lot of people would still play the game. If you go look at
Mhm.
like some other games, let's say Magic being the longest standing one, that's what normal constructed in Magic looks like. But I'm with you. I don't play constructed in Magic generally. Um, if there's a competitive event and I feel that I know the current constructive environment, the meta well enough, I'm willing to go give it a shot for a very limited time. But boy, I just don't play that over and over again. And like the mode I like the best in Magic is draft or limited. I don't know how familiar you are with that, but that's where you sit there with start passing packs of cards on the table, take one out, pass the pack to your left or whatever, and so that's where you get the variety from. And again, it's
Mhm.
RNG that you can react to. That it's not just you're at the whim of X Men. It's literally you look at those cards and you're like, okay, this is the best one. I'm going to take that one, or this one will fit my deck the best, or this has the most different branches I can then pursue. Um, and that makes it a lot more interesting. And I see a similar sort of thing from locations. And yeah, I'm with you though. If they remove locations or they have a three ruins um, competitive, I just think that ruins the game fully. What do you
Mhm.
think if it was like some sort of a each player gets to pick one location and then one random? Would you like that, or do you think that would be?
Yeah, so I have thought about this. Like, you get to like draft your own locations. I guess you get to bring your own locations with you. And I know Ben Brode has had like a statement on this as well. Um, I think that the facts. So what Ben Brode said, I kind of agree with, is the fact that there's like a lot of locations that benefit certain decks more, and some decks don't really get a lot of benefit from location choices. Um, so I think I like how it is completely random. I think there could be like a separate game mode where you can draft your own locations. I think that would be like fun game mode to play. But I don't think it would be great for like the overall like gameplay, in my opinion. Yeah.
I agree with that, and I agree with what Ben Brode said. I didn't know he'd said exactly that, but that was my exact take.
Hmm.
That if you get to pick a certain location for your deck, it's gonna make things much more. I don't know, change the game significantly. That if your deck doesn't key off one location with extreme amounts of power, you're just not playing a viable deck at that point, and I think that's really bad. What about the flip side of that?
Yeah.
If you could say, I get to ban one deck, and like this was part of your deck building process, right? That in your deck, you got to say ban one location. It doesn't have to be a draft. It doesn't have to take any time out of queuing for the game. You just say, Mindscape for you will never show up when I'm playing this deck. Would that be a good thing? And if both players pick Mindscape, they agree anyway. But if not, it's not even necessarily something that's really very visible to your opponent.
Yeah, I think that's okay. Especially because of the only thing I'd be worried about is like if everyone started banning like District X, because everyone hates District X, but I really like District X. That takes away like I won't really get to experience that location as much. But I think it's okay. But there's also these locations like I guess like Fisk Tower, which if you're playing like a movement deck on Fisk Tower, you kind of have to retreat. A lot of the time, I would imagine. I don't play move decks. And I feel like banning Fisk Tower as a move deck would be quite strong. Never having to encounter like the one of the locations that hard counters you is quite a good advantage.
I don't
Yeah.
think that's necessarily that big of an advantage. I think that's actually a good argument for why this would be a good mechanic or a good thing in the game. Is it opens you up to play some things like you're playing a Cerebro deck and you ban Wakandan Embassy because that one just you can't
Hmm.
even react to, right? You have no way to react to that if you're playing Cerebro. You're just completely out of the game at no fault of your own, and so I think that it might be able to just um, enable decks to exist.
Hmm.
Um, some people would ban things. I think that banning, X Mansion was that the one you said? District
District
X.
X.
They're the same thing. Um, I don't think anyone would legitimately ban that unless they were just trying to stream snipe you, because there's surely more impactful things you could ban than that, right? Like Go, for
Hmm.
example, or if you really just want to be more competitive, that's still a pretty neutral thing. Whereas if you're only running no ongoings, banning Onslaught Citadel might be better because your opponent will get far more advantage off of it than you, right? If you are playing a move deck,
Mm-hmm.
I guess Fist Tower makes more sense anyway, but if Fist Tower didn't exist, I think Onslaught Citadel would be a reasonable thing to ban because that you might just lose to an Iron Man anyway. But I don't know. I'm still thinking about it, but I think right now banning one location could be good for the game and actually open deck diversity.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting thought. I never thought about that, and I will think more about it. I think that's definitely like a better solution than bringing location. Just banning one location isn't as bad, and it could definitely be something. Especially as more locations get added, I guess banning one location doesn't matter as
Yep.
much. As well. When every week they're adding a new location, you're only banning like 1/60th instead of 1/100th of the pool or something. So I think it could be a good idea to explore potentially.
Yeah. Because again, there might be one location just really makes it so this deck does not function, like Fist Tower. I think that's actually a perfect example of a very reasonable thing to ban that just lets your deck exist. It doesn't make your deck overpowered. It just means you don't instantly lose.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's -1 cube if you're playing a move deck every time, I guess. So.
Yeah, and that's not fun, right? And at the end of the day, fun's probably more important than competitive integrity, but ideally we want to see some sort of overlap between the two.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go into locations we don't like. And I know you already said Mindscape, and I want to tell a quick story about Mindscape here as we go into this idea. Back then, I liked Mindscape. I don't know how much you remember of that. I loved Mindscape because I saw Mindscape. There was a Mindscape hot location weekend, right? I saw Mindscape and I was like, "Oh, I win." That makes me like it. But again, I was playing. I forgot which deck I was playing at the time. I was definitely running a deck with Strong Guy before he got nerfed.
Yeah, it was like a discard deck.
I mean, it was just an efficient deck.
But like
yeah, Angela Bishop, Strong Guy. Blade, maybe I ran Sif and Ghost Rider. I don't really remember, to be quite honest, exactly. But the fact was, I wanted to empty my hand. So on turn 6, and I was playing Chavez. It wasn't Ghost Rider. My turn 6 was Chavez, almost always. And my turn 5 was have an empty hand. And then my Strong Guy got deactivated because I got, your 5 cards, so I wasn't going to empty that. So I lost 6 power, but in return, you got a 0-card hand. And boy, was that awesome. And I made like a Mindscape emote on Discord and one on my Twitch channel. And I just had a blast with it, trolling you basically. But now I'm playing, the Sarah Negative deck. Oh boy, I don't like Mindscape anymore.
Yeah.
Oh boy, it feels bad. Well, I have Scarlet Witch as my fix and magic, right?
Yeah.
And so, it really illuminates for me this idea that what you like and dislike is just such a big deal based on what you're playing. And I think people really have to be willing to back up and realize that if they ever want to have these sorts of discussions of how much of it is based on what your favorite deck right now is versus legitimately what's a good or a bad thing. And I don't think Mindscape's a bad thing to exist. Run location removal. I guess we should touch on that a little bit more throughout these locations we went through. But we'll go to that in a second. Run location removal, or be ready to deal with these things, either by having ways to play around what they're doing or whatnot. But the general thing I dislike in locations, I guess the other one that's similar to Mindscape is, what is it? Adeline? Did I say that right?
Oh, yeah, that one sucks, yeah.
And I saw someone, I forgot who, make the claim that the better you are at the game, the more you start to hate Adeline, which is somewhat fair, because you're trying to, as I said before, I see my locations flip and I start planning, what am I going to do? I see Adeline flip, I'm like, throw all these plans out the window. Like, they don't mean anything.
Yeah.
But, things that just kind of make it so you don't really get to think through what you're doing, I guess, is the things I dislike the most. What about you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I honestly don't think there's that many locations that I do mind. That I don't mind. I actually think I don't really see a location I'm like super sad about. Like Mindscape was definitely one. I can still remember my reaction when Mindscape was the featured location. I was definitely not happy. for one thing. I wish I could find the clip somewhere, but I was not happy when it got revealed. But that's like the same thing. Because back then I was playing like big stuff Ghost Rider deck. I'm pretty sure. So I had a lot of big cards on turn 6. If I was playing a deck like yours, we are playing Blade and Lady Sif, I would probably enjoy Mindscape a lot more. But just for the fact that specific deck, I had a lot of big cards left in my hand on turn 6, and damn it, I'm giving you my Hulk. I don't have anything bigger than a Hulk. It felt bad.
Imagine if you give away your Hela.
But I actually
imagine if you give away your Hela. Sorry for interrupting there.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Yeah, exactly, like things like that. But honestly, like I don't know, maybe again it's because I play this game a lot. But if it is like a location like Mindscape, like that's really gonna mess up my strategy, and I really can't play around it, I actually don't mind just retreating. I don't know if it's because I play a large... Like, I can imagine if you only have 20 minutes to play your Marvel Snap games, and you get, like, Mindscape into Subterranean into District X, you get really unlucky with locations. That kind of sucks and be quite tilting. But I'm really of the opinion that it's okay just to retreat if there's a location that's that bad.
I think that's a really good comment to make, that I haven't really thought about playtime exactly, because I'm with you somewhat that, I'm fine if I need to retreat, whatever. But now you say that, I'm thinking about that. What if someone is sitting there limited time, they want to get their quests done, they want to win some games, have some fun, and they just retreat 3 in a row, and something like, screw this game, I'm done. That could be a very unfun thing to have. But it's good that you don't dislike a lot of locations. I don't really think I dislike that many either. If I did have to say one that just bothers me a lot for no... I'm not going to say for no real reason. I know the reason. Dream Dimension. On turn 5, cards cost 1 more. Oh my gosh. I like it existing. But I think it's one of my favorite ones to destroy. I think every deck I've ever played has hated that. It's either I want to play 5-drop on turn 5 like a Sarah, or I want to be playing multiple discards like Blade, Hellcow, and something, who knows what else, to discard my swarms. Mm-hmm. And just no matter what it is, it just ruins everything. But
you might like Project Power then, if you've seen that location.
I have not.
It's one of the data mine ones. It's on turn 5. Both players get a +5 energy.
Project Pegasus.
Project Pegasus, yeah, that's what it's called.
Yeah, I just looked it up.
Yeah, that's right. That's like Dream Dimension, but the extreme in the opposite direction. No.
So again,
that's a very extreme
going back
location.
to my mathematical thing, though, I think that good deck design is that you're taking into account the energy you're going to have and how you're going to spend it, and just bam, +5 energy. I don't have anything to do with that. Like, what? I don't know. Yeah. I think if you build a deck well, you're very rarely going to care about that 5 energy. Sometimes you will.
I agree.
And so I think I dislike that for the opposite reason, that someone who just has some who knows what jank is going to destroy me, which is fine, power to them, but I'm happy for it to exist, because I guess at the end of the day I'm just going to be like, okay, I guess I do nothing here with it.
You can still Scarlet Witch it though, I believe you'll be able to.
It looks like it's not turn 5 based on this data mine, but who knows?
Oh, maybe it's not, I could be remembering
+5 energy this turn, it says, just as a flip.
Oh, okay, so I guess it's more like Tinker's then.
Yeah. So you get that on turn 1, then you just I don't even know what you do.
Yeah, that changes a lot. That changes a lot then, yeah. Okay, cool. Anyway, yeah. I guess. Just a side note.
No, that's good. But if we, as I mentioned, let's go back and look at some of these that, what can you actually interact with on removal? So, Danger Room you can, Weird World you can. District X, it doesn't really matter if you remove it, right? Ego gets to pick if Ego removes it. Subterranean, it doesn't matter. X Mansion, it doesn't matter. Hub, it doesn't matter. TVA is a powerful one to be able to remove, right? So those are some of the big ones we hit. Mm-hmm. Things like Adeline and Mindscape, and there's a good number that removal is very good on. And so we kind of started with talking about removal options. Do I just overrate location removal? Do you like it to some degree? Now that we've kind of gone...
No, I mean, I agree. I think location removal is great. And I also like the fact that you can, opt into it. A lot of times in my decks, I don't actually run any location removal at all. I'm just at, and I sometimes I do feel I'm at mercy to the RNG gods, and I feel like I should be having it in there. Um, but I like the fact that you can just jam Scarlet Witch in every deck, and they're for the most part like you said, there are some locations that it doesn't do anything about. But I think it affects the majority of locations though. Um,
Yeah, it affects a lot. I mentioned Dream Dimensions one I
mhm,
love to get rid of because I want to spend my turn 5 as I plan to. Um, but man,
mhm.
I just have a really hard time making any deck without location removal, which is why I like Scarlet Witch so much. And now that I have Magic, I have a second option. So Scarlet Witch and Magic do have a little bit of tension um, that you usually don't need to remove two locations. So they both have their strengths and their not so good aspects, but I don't know. I like
Mhm.
location removal a lot.
Yes, yes, we know. I want to ask like one other question. Pretty much kind of on this topic. How much do you think about locations when you're building a deck? For example, let's say you're running a I don't know what kind of deck actually, but a Sanctum Sanctorum where you can't put any cards that no cards can be played in that location. Do you ever consider you're playing this deck? You have obviously you can't Scarlet Witch it, you can't interact with it. Do you ever just consider, oh, I don't have Mr. Fantastic. I'm gonna have to jam in a Nightcrawler just so I have an option to get into Sanctum. Like, does that ever cross your mind when you're deck
It
building?
absolutely does cross my mind when I'm deck building. Do I take it as far as what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely have to put this in. No, um,
Mm-hmm.
but if you want to start comparing, say, Ant Man to Nightcrawler, I think whether or not you have, say, Mr. Fantastic in your deck very much impacts, well, how good is Nightcrawler versus Ant Man. I think Ant Man's a generically stronger card just because he's 4 power for 1 mana. But, Nightcrawler has
Mm-hmm.
this ability. He gets an extra 2 power playing into an Angela lane because you can move him out, right? He gets a 2 power that can impact Sanctum or Danger Room without having a blow up chance or whatever, or plus 2 power if he moves into that one location that I should know the names of doing a location thing. There you
Kunlun.
go. Um, you know, and so I do think about these things somewhat on how bad are certain locations for me, or does this have any upside strength to things? And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, and I think that's a good thing to think about, in all honesty. But there's a lot of cards when you start building a deck that you just can't, I guess. Um, you know, Iron Man's bad into some locations like Negative Zone, great into some locations like +5 power to everything here. Um, but he's still a good card, regardless, right? And
Yeah.
so some
Mm-hmm.
things like that, it's just there's nothing to think about. But I do think when you get to like your 10th, 11th, 12th slot in a deck, you should probably be making those sorts of thoughts. Because I think by that time
Mm-hmm.
you're past kind of your core of your deck and you're into, well, how do I want to fill this out? And I think filling it out with cards that can, benefit or hedge against locations that are not just auto losses, but this one makes it harder on me and I want to win that game more. I think that's a good thing to think about in deck building, personally. What about you?
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I'm not great at deck building, which is why I wanted to ask you and get your opinions on it in general. But I think again, like like Sanctum specifically, I feel is like it's quite a strong location to consider compared to like Iron Man and Negative Zone. Like you can always just play like Iron Man in a different lane or like some other cards in Negative
Yeah.
Zone. But like Sanctum, if you don't have an option to get into Sanctum, you don't have an option unless there's something crazy like Sinister London. But I guess as we kind of touched on before, when they start adding more locations in the game, you're going to get Sanctum less frequently, so it's not going to be as much of a thing to deck build around. Yeah.
Maybe, but they could also add other things that I don't know what they would do that still have a similar sort of
Yeah,
a
that's
thing.
true. That's true.
Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I very much like having options like that, and I think most of my decks have had something that can get into Sanctum in some way. Sometimes it can even just be like a White Tiger or something. Who knows? If you play it late enough,
Yeah.
then you fill up one of your other two lanes, play it in to force that into there. And I think that having those options is very, very strong in a deck in general.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Yeah. So does that bring us to the end of location talk? I feel like we're missing something, but I don't know what that is.
I don't know. We're probably missing a lot of things, but that's all I can think of at the moment, really. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, if people are listening, we missed anything, like feel free to like comment down below, let us know.
absolutely.
We'll check it out, maybe talk about it at the start of next episode. So
Yeah, absolutely. And next episode, we'll also kind of talk about what we know about the new season. Oh, one thing I did want to mention. I believe rumors are that we'll have a patch this coming week. Don't know what's in the patch,
oh really?
but I think is supposed to be a patch. I think. So I think it might be like
I
a
had no
minor
idea.
balance patch. Who knows, really? Don't quote me on
Cool.
this, but let's get our hopes up.
Yeah, I'm down. I'm looking forward to it then.
Yeah.
Sick.
Um. So if I guess we're done here. It's been over an hour at this point. Sorry, people needed an hour, but not that much over. You want to tell everyone where they can find you, Talk?
Yeah, sure. So you guys can find me at Talkwyn. I stream 6 days a week on Twitch. You guys can find me there. Same on Twitter, same handle. I also started a TikTok, so check me out on TikTok and YouTube. I will upload more frequently on YouTube eventually, I promise. Yeah, that's it for me, really.
All right. You can find me at my Twitch channel. I do a stream with Kanye Best, who's another person in the Snap community, called Two Guys, One Deck. This is Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, where people can come in, submit your pool 3, and we'll let you know what we would do with it. And feel free to give us whatever weird restrictions you want. I really don't want you to Sarah. I know what to do with Sarah. I'm bored of Sarah. Go for it. We'll work around that. We'll work with you. It's meant to be a kind of informative thing for your benefit, for the community's benefit. Yeah, come check us out. Also, the Mastering Snap Discord, there should be a link provided in the YouTube description at the very least. I don't know what happens on the other podcast platforms, I'll be honest with you. But if you want to join and you listen to this on a podcast platform, you can always go to YouTube. And you can find me on Twitter, VinKelsier. Oh, and my Twitch here is also just twitch.com/VinKelsier. And that's about it for this week. So hope everyone has a great week. You got this final week to finish your climb to infinite if that's what you want to do. So best of luck to everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Cool. Peace. See you guys.